Hello my friends and welcome back to Italy, a place to love YouTube channel. Okay, so in today's video I want to talk about my favorite regions in Italy and why. I also want to explain you why. So as an Italian who is running a channel on YouTube in English language, so I want to give you the point of view of an Italian. Now, you might have seen a lot of videos, but you might have watched a lot of videos from foreigners moving to Italy, but today I'm gonna give you the list of my favorite region and my favorite regions here in Italy. And let's see, I didn't prepare anything, I just wrote in order which one are my favorite, okay, from the first to the last, the 20 regions, and I'll try to explain you why. Anyway, why this is my favorite, why it's not, and so on. Okay, let's start from the very first region, okay? Now, the very first region that I pick up, that I choose is obviously Basilicata. Let me honor this region of Italy and let me tell you why Basilicata is my favorite region. Okay, first of all, okay, is the region where all my relatives are coming from. So my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my great-great-great-great-great-great grandparents. So they are all from here. No, but apart this joke, okay, no, I love Basilicata. Obviously, this list is based on what I like, okay, so try to follow what I like, what my tastes are, so. And now, Basilicata, I like it in particular because it's one of the most underrated regions in Italy, first of all. And so it's not a region that it's well known, for example, foreigners don't really know much about Basilicata. So for me, it's a hidden gem, let me say. In the south of Italy, is this region in between more important regions that had been kind of abandoned for the last few centuries, okay? Seems like nobody cared about this land. It's made I think the population of Basilicata is extremely low. I think it's 200 or 300,000 inhabitants, all the region itself, in a country that is 60 millions. So we are talking only about 300,000 inhabitants. I'm not sure, I should double check, but. And so it's a hidden gem. It's made of very small towns where the life seems like stopped here. So when you enter in Basilicata, you might find a very particular dimension. It seems like in some places you are going back in the time. Okay, so basically I love the tranquility, I love, it's a very peaceful place, so it's made of all these small towns with very small inhabitants, maybe towns that go from ghost towns, like there are few towns totally abandoned where nobody lives, to towns like the capital of the region itself, Potenza, or big town like Matera, who is also a province here. So anyway, it's a hidden gem. It's a hidden gem where I can see also a great potential for this place anyway. So this is the reason why I love Basilicata. Then in Basilicata there is everything, and I repeat, life is peaceful and quiet. Okay, let's go to the second region, to the second favorite region according to me. Now, I put two at the second place, okay? Umbria and Marche. Now, with Umbria and Marche that I put on at the second place, and then at the third place I put Abruzzo and Molise. So, why? It was very difficult to say which one is second and which one is third. Let me say that both, okay, the second and the third, so Umbria Marche and Abruzzo Molise, I put them together at the second place and the third place together, because it's very hard to say which one is better. But again, for example, now what's the difference between Umbria, Marche and Abruzzo, Molise? Let me say just this thing. For example, now Abruzzo, Molise, they are considered already south of Italy, okay? Even if, for me, according to me, if I see the map of Italy, I would put Abruzzo and Molise in the center of Italy. But I don't know, by definition, I don't know why, who gave this definition, I don't know. But by definition, Abruzzo and Molise are located in the south of Italy, while the other two regions that I mentioned before, Marche and Umbria, they are in the center of Italy. Obviously, now, these four regions have things in common with Basilicata, so that's why I put them at the second and third place, because they're kind of not very high populated regions. For example, these are regions where the time again seems like stopped back in the days. If you go to Umbria or if you go to Marche, you will find very small and peaceful and quiet towns. The same is for Abruzzo and Molise. Again, the only difference is that Abruzzo and Molise, they are considered south of Italy, while Umbria, Marche, then they have different history, for example, because Umbria and Marche, in the history before the unification of Italy, they always been part of the Papal State. So what is today Vatican, the Vatican. So the Vatican used to be a bigger state, a big state before the unification of Italy, was taking nearly all the center of Italy, was under the Papal State, while, for example, Abruzzo and Molise always been part of the Kingdom of Naples. So that's why the history, for example, is a bit different. But technically, these four regions, and if we see geographically, starting from the southern one, that is Molise, then we go in northern direction, there is Abruzzo, then we go northern and there is Marche, then we go a bit western, then Marche, and we find Umbria. So they're all connected, this region. And the thing is that they preserve very high level of tradition, small towns, again, the quality of the life is very high. This is for me one of the reasons why these places, for example, these regions are very they could be a very good place to live. You see that all the people who are coming from this region, they're generally happy people. They're not frustrated. I don't see frustration, for example, in these people. Then services are working quite well, better than the rest of the south of Italy, for example. Maybe they don't, services are not as good as the north of Italy, but north of Italy has other things that personally I don't like, for example. Okay, then this was the second and the third place. Now at the fourth place, I put Apulia region. And why? So I consider Apulia a beautiful region. So even if it's part of the south of Italy, the region itself is working quite well, has a lot of traditions. The services are working, let me say, in a good way. They are not that bad, the services in Apulia region. There are big centers. You might find a city like Bari that is already considered a big city in Italy, so you might find services, for example, at a good level. So, and then the beauties of Apulia. First of all, let me go back about Basilicata, Abruzzo, Molise, Marche, and Umbria, that they all have beautiful places, these regions. So, but for me, an example, Apulia region, from this point of view, is even a bit better, let me say, because the beauties of Apulia, in particularly the sea, and the valleys and the small towns. But again, maybe because the mentality of the south of Italy, okay, that is a bit particular. So in the south of Italy, what you might find difficult, for example, it's to deal with the mentality of the people that is shaped because years and years and years of, let me say, of a land that is not that hasn't been promoted and developed as it should have. I think it's more than what has been taken from these lands than what has been given had been given. So anyway, so that's why anyway I put Apulia a bit under, simply because the mentality, okay? So it might not be very easy for people who are relocating. I'd say, for example, if you want to relocate to Italy, I'd say Molise, Abruzzo, Umbria and Marche, it's much easier. The mentality is more, people are more relaxed, let me say. While, for example, in the south of Italy, people are a bit more stressed, they are a bit more concerned about, oh, things here are not working and so on, and this is the thing. So, but obviously Basilicata has the similar problem of Apulia. Actually, the self-esteem here in Basilicata is because I like Puglia because people have a very high self-esteem of themselves. I like this. This is something that I have to give to Apulian people. While, for example, Basilicata people that are very similar to Apulian, but the self-esteem is lower. But again, I put Basilicata because Basilicata is the region where I choose to relocate, where if I have to stay in Italy, I've done my big bet. Let me say, I believe a lot in the potential of this region. That's why. Okay, then let's go at the fifth place. At the fifth place, I put Tuscany. Now, I don't want to spend now too many words because time is running and I have to cover still the majority of the regions of Italy. But Tuscany, what can we say about Tuscany? Tuscany is one of the most beautiful places in the world. But, and for example, what personally I don't like of Tuscany is that it's a bit too much overrated. For example, accommodations, to find a place to live in Tuscany, it might not be that cheap like could be, for example, in the other regions that I mentioned before. Anyway, it's a beautiful region full of history. Tuscany people are considered one of the best people in Italy. They are very friendly, they are not stressed. But anyway, it could be difficult simply because it's so overrated that for the last, let me say, 30, 40, 50 years had been already kind of a lot of British, a lot of Americans, a lot of Germans already kind of occupied this land. A lot of Tuscany region is, how could I say, anyway, has been bought, simply has been bought already by these three nationalities. And so this is why it makes it a bit unreachable, let me say. If you don't really have a lot of money, it's the place where it could be hard to find, for example, very cheap houses. Obviously, in a region where you have cities like Florence or Pisa or Siena and so on. I could go on for many. I could mention so many places again. That's the only, but anyway, it's still on the top 5. It's on at the 5th place. Then at the 6th, I put Sardinia. Sardinia also I like it because it's a bit underrated, but it's such a beautiful place. Such a beautiful. I mean, there's no place in Sardinia that I would say here I would never live, for example. Then the problem of Sardinia, for example, is well known. People find hard to find a job, but Sardinian people are also very friendly. So I would put at the 6th place, and then It's a beautiful region, in particular the sea, the inland, the food, the products, the quality, the culture, everything, let me say, is top in Sardinia. So, and all the regions that I mentioned up to now, anyway, Basilicata, let me do a recap. Basilicata, Umbria, Marche, Abruzzo, Molise, Tuscany, and Sardinia, these are all places where I would relocate myself. For example, if I have to choose one place where to live, I would focus on this. Then let me go to the seventh place straight away, because here we have Lazio and Campania region. So also Lazio and Campania regions are two regions where I technically would relocate. More Campania. Lazio, to be honest, I know is beautiful, but for example, I already find a bit more stressful situation. First, because there is Rome, and Rome is such a big city. It's 4 million inhabitants, so the majority of the people in Lazio region is living in Rome. Then Rome area, Rome city itself, plus all the suburban area is extremely chaotic. For example, I don't like that. I don't like the stress of the city, all these dynamics. Maybe services is also well known that in Rome are not really working very well. Then, anyway, we have Campania region. Campania region is the same if we think about Naples, for example. Now, we can say that Campania, most of the people of Campania region lives in Naples area and the suburban area of Naples. So we are talking about between Rome and Naples all together. With the suburban area, we're nearly talking about 10 million people. Then, if we are talking about, for example, the parts of Campania, the provinces in Campania and the provinces in Lazio that is not Naples or is not Rome, then I could think about. But again, because they have these two big cities in the region itself, I find them already more dependent from the city, more stressful, even if the beauties, for example, the beauties from Campania region and Lazio region are also unique. So it's something that, but I would still put anyway these two regions in the list of the regions where I would live. Now, from the 8th position, are starting the regions that I would never leave, for example, myself. And now, but I'm not saying that these are bad places, okay? Because, for example, now let me go, at the 8th place, I put 3 regions altogether. And one is Valle d'Aosta. That is a region that many people in Italy don't know. So it's in the north of Italy, it's at the border with France and Switzerland, it's a very wealthy region, small, very small inhabitants. There's only one province of a town called Aosta. Then there is Trentino Alto Adige, that is this region at the border, for example, with Austria. I don't know if partially Switzerland and Austria. And then we have Friuli, Venezia Giulia, that are these regions, is this region at the border with Slovenia, Austria, mainly. For example, these are 3 beautiful regions. There's nothing bad I can say. I say the quality of the life is very high. So the best quality of the life in Italy you can find in these 3 regions. But for example, these 3 regions are 3 mountains region. And for example, I'm not really a fan of the mountain life, for example. Obviously, if you love mountains, this is the perfect place for you, I mean. But because they are northern regions, the mountains region, so let me say, they have a lovely summer. Summer is nice, but because I'm looking for warmer places where I'd like to spend most of my time in a warm place, so I would avoid these 3 regions simply because anyway the winters are longer, the winters are colder. So for these reasons, for example, I would avoid these three, even if I repeat, the quality of the life is one of the highest in these three regions of Italy, is one of the highest. Okay, then at the ninth place I put Emilia-Romagna and Liguria. These two regions, one is a very, anyway, northern region. It's a very narrow region, Liguria, many of you know it. So what I don't like, for example, of Emilia-Romagna and Liguria, even if Emilia-Romagna and Liguria have beautiful territory, beautiful traditions, but again, they are based in the north of Italy, for example, and north of Italy, again, for example, Emilia-Romagna is very industrial. For this reason, for example, I don't, even if there are a lot of places like in Tuscany and like in Marche and Umbria, you might find beautiful small towns in Emilia-Romagna, but everything is running quite fast. It's a very hard-working place, so this is giving points, but again, that would bring me the idea that it's gonna be, for example, a stressful life. And then, for example, Liguria, I love Liguria, but the territory, I don't really like the territory because has a long coast on the sea. But then you have straight away hills and mountains just. So I see in a country like Italy, where the territory hasn't been looked after at all for the last 40 years, had been totally abandoned, I would see it a bit dangerous. Anyway, we saw, for example, we see that each time there is a flooding, for example, Emilia-Romagna, the northern Liguria and the northern part of Tuscany are the ones that are always suffering more than any other. Okay, so from this point of view, again, I'm not really a fan, but they are still beautiful regions, because I'm not saying that this list is to say that these are not beautiful regions, okay? And everyone can find whatever they like in these regions. Personally, I would put not on the top of the list. Okay, then at the 10th place, I put Calabria region. Now, I love Calabria, and Calabria is beautiful, but the territory is so particular. It's this long shape region, transportations are not good at all, and unfortunately about Calabria, that is not at the very last place, but Calabria and Sicily, that are the two regions that I put at the very last place, that I will never and ever relocate. It's simply because territory hasn't been looked after well, totally abandoned. I blame the Italian government for this reason. I mean, I'm not blaming people, but also people mentality that for example, I find very, very hard to deal, because if the economy, for example, is not going well, people are more frustrated. For example, okay, now I'm talking about Calabria and Sicily, both together. I feel a bit sorry for all the foreigners who are relocating to Sicily, I'm openly saying, because I would find very, very hard to live. Then the territory is beautiful, is amazing, but because the mentality of the people, the way the mentality of the people have been shaped during these years, Italian government not looking after and always blaming people, and then people who have abandoned the land. It's well known that most of the Americans who are relocated, Italians who relocated to the States, they were from Sicily, the majority. I'm talking about 60-70% of all the Italian Americans are from Sicily. Maybe they want to go back to their roots, like, for example, me, that I decided to go back to the roots, to the place where all my ancestors were from, like Basilicata. So from this point of view, I can understand if a foreigner, let me say an Italian American, But to be honest, most of the videos that I see of people relocating in Sicily, you don't see many people relocating to Calabria. Calabria has too many problems related with infrastructure, with a territory that has been abandoned by centuries by the Italian government. Okay, since the unification, is a territory that only has been taken and nothing has been given. So I have a fly dancing with me in the room. We still have flies here in Montemilone. Okay, and that's why I put Sicily at the very last place. Also because I see the experiences that people are having. I mean, they're asking a lot. You have to spend a lot of money if you want to buy a lovely house over there. So, to be honest, I would never pay. And the territory, transportation, and maybe because it's an island and never been connected properly to the mainland. Um, it makes it for me impossible to live. But anyway, I don't want. I'm saying I'm gonna keep repeat one more time that there are two beautiful regions. It's a pity the way the culture hasn't been preserved for me as they should have. They should have. They built a lot of new constructions instead of giving value to the old towns. I don't like, for example, I could mention few cities in few towns in Sicily. If I'm thinking about Enna or Caltanissetta, that they have beautiful historic towns. The historic part of the town is beautiful. Then, if I see what they built around, I say, "Oh my God, my eyes cannot see these things." Totally. For me, it's very important that my eyes are satisfied by what they see. I'm slightly disappointed, for example, with Basilicata because had gone through this process as well, but thanks, let me say, fortunately, much more less than Calabria and Sicily, and they still preserve the integrity of the beautiful small towns, which I repeat, Abruzzo, Marche, Umbria, and Molise, they kept as we should have kept, for example, Sicily and Calabria. But Sicily and Calabria, they build a lot of buildings, disgusting buildings. So cities like Palermo or Catania, apart the center, I mean, I would never enjoy living there. So don't take it personally, I would never live there. And then let me say, okay, now at the very last place, I put these three regions: Piedmont region, Lombardy, and Veneto. Now, the most three industrialized regions of Italy, okay? So what I remember from Torino was just pollution everywhere. They are in Valpadana area, all these three regions, and because they are very industrial,